Hi, how's everybody doing today? I am your host, Rich, here on behalf of Rich TV Live with our very special guest, Joel Dumaresq, the CEO of a very special company that's been doing really, really well, Christina Lake Cannabis Corp., CLC in Canada, CLCFF in America, A2QEGJ in Frankfurt, Germany. Welcome, Joel. How you doing today?
I'm doing super. Listening to those symbols, we're going to have to find a way to get a more succinct symbol in Frankfurt. That's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a mouthful, but you know what? For our Frankfurt investors, they're super excited because they get a chance to get in and get involved in this early stage story. And we broke the news on Friday. Big news for your company, breaking news, very exciting news. And why don't we go through it? Why don't you explain a little bit about, what's going on, Joel, and what's going on with the news, and maybe a little bit about your background and how you got started with Christina Lake and what your goals are and what your plans are with this company.
Yeah, happy to do that, Rich. Maybe just before I do that, just touching on you mentioned Germany and our German investor audience. We feel the story is really well suited and compelling, particularly for a German audience. Largely because what we're doing is, in comparison to a lot of the other cannabis that's grown in Canada, our cannabis is being grown naturally. It's been grown by natural sunlight and water from the sky and so on. So we don't have the pesticides and insecticides and all of those types of things that often products that are being grown indoors carry. And so we've had a lot of interest out of Germany as a result of that. But yeah, let me back up and talk a little bit about the news, my background, and so on. So I'm from the finance world. I've been involved in a number of cannabis companies from a finance standpoint. The genesis of Christina Lake goes back about 3 or 4 years ago. In fact, it goes way back further than that, but my involvement goes back about 3 years. And I was looking for a project that was lent itself really well to the kind of cannabis 2.0, the next phase of the cannabis market, the development of edibles, and the pharmaceutical opportunities that we think cannabis will provide over the next number of years as more and more research gets done into the benefits of THC and CBD and so on from a medical standpoint. And this project came to me through a fellow that I knew that had been involved in ice hockey, and his son was playing ice hockey out in Alberta, and ended up meeting these 3 founders that ended up being the founders of our company, Christina Lake. And they had all grown up in the Christina Lake area. And for your listeners who don't know where Christina Lake is, Christina Lake sits in south central British Columbia, so right above the U.S. border. In fact, our site's about a good 9-iron golf shot from the U.S. border, so very, very close to the U.S. border. And that's important for a whole bunch of reasons, not the least of which is that it's ideally suited for growing cannabis outdoors. So when we talk about BC bud and the history of BC bud, BC cannabis and marijuana, really the genesis of where that came from was in this area and what we call the Kootenays, and particularly in the Christina Lake area. And the reason for that is that Christina Lake is very, very favorable to growing, much the way that Napa Valley, for example, with wine for your American viewers, and perhaps Bordeaux for your European listeners, or Tuscany are favorable for growing wine and wine grapes. Christina Lake is probably the best location in all of North America for growing cannabis outdoors. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them being that it's super, super dry and warm through the summer, which is our growing season. It's typically the warmest, driest place in Canada. In fact, Christina Lake itself is the warmest lake in Canada. The other reasons are the soil is incredibly rich. The Kettle River, which runs through the Central Valley nearby Christina Lake, has been flooding for millennia. In fact, just about every year, the city of Grand Forks, which is very close to Christina Lake, floods. And what that does is it's created a very, very rich bed of soil which just about anything can grow on, and very, very nutrient strong. And then the last and probably the most important factor why Christina Lake is so favorable for growing cannabis is that you get very strong winds that blow down through the valley. And the valley kind of narrows right towards our site. And what that does is it tasks or impacts the cannabis plants to where they have to develop very, very strong root structure. Sitting outside facing these winds, they have to develop very, very deep roots, which go well into the soil and bring up those nutrients I was speaking of. And also much thicker stalk, so the actual plant stalk ends up much more robust. And why that's important is that these plants go really, really high. In our area, these are monster cannabis plants in comparison to what you would see indoors or in greenhouses or even in many of the other locations where you have outdoor growing in Canada. So what you'll get is you'll get these plants being almost as wide as they are tall. So think of a cannabis plant. We have pictures on our website. Would invite your viewers to go to our website, www.christinalakecannabis.com, and you'll see pictures. The plants are almost as wide as they are tall. They'll grow as high as 8.5, 9 feet, and they'll grow as wide as they are tall. And what that means is that we end up with a really, really good yield on these plants as compared to an indoor or a greenhouse producer where you might have half a pound or 3/4 of a pound of cannabis flower per plant. What you find with our plants is that it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds per plant. So very, very robust capabilities. And that's one of the reasons, talking to the press release you mentioned, we highlighted the fact that we'd originally forecast in our first crop this summer that we would harvest about 15,000 kilos of dried biomass, so plant material. And we ended up with more than twice that, close to 33,000 kilos of biomass. In fact, it overran our facility with the supply that we had come off our field, just because these plants were so healthy and so robust, really exceeded expectations. So let me dial it back to the beginning of my intro here, where I mentioned the founders. So met the 3 founders through a relationship I had. They were looking for financing. These guys had all grown up in the Christina Lake area. They had been involved in the cannabis industry for 20 or 25 years. You can do the math on that. You'll realize that was before legalization. But that's what's important, because it's very difficult to find outdoor expertise. It's very limited because, of course, under the illegal market, not many people were growing outdoors because it was difficult to keep it out of the eye of the authorities. So finding guys that know what they're doing and have a really strong understanding of outdoor genetics is absolutely essential. And these 3 guys had a very, very strong understanding of the outdoor genetics in that Christina Lake area. So we backed them, we financed them to build what effectively was their dream. And their dream was to build an outdoor facility completely legal to Health Canada standards. In fact, even higher than that, which you'll see in the press release as well. It's been built to EU, European Union, GMP standards. So to the highest standard that we could possibly build to, so that we can actually sell product, not only in Canada, but eventually abroad, eventually in Europe and other parts around the world. So that was important to us at the outset that we had that capability. And the other thing that's important about these guys is that the genetics that they developed are specifically developed for the outdoor cannabis space. So what they actually owned when we got involved with them were 87 different strains that they specifically had developed of outdoor cannabis. In addition to that, they had developed a seed bank of almost 600,000 seeds. So that's absolutely essential, because that became the foundation of our operation for those seeds and those genetics. And under Health Canada rules, when our facility was initially licensed, so we got licensed earlier this year, back in February, March. And when we were licensed, you get an amnesty program where you have 30 days and you can bring your genetics into the company. So all of those genetics became the property of Christina Lake Cannabis. And literally it's millions and millions of dollars worth of value, and sits on our balance sheet at several $1 million worth of value. And that becomes really the intellectual property of the company. All of our facility is built around that. So let me tell you a little bit about the facility. The facility is 2 properties. The initial property that we purchased 2 years ago is 32 acres. That's where our cultivation building sits, the building that we develop our genetics in, we develop our seeds and our baby plants, and where we do our cloning. Then we have 2 large greenhouses. We move the plants out to the greenhouses in the spring after they've started to bloom, and we develop them further in the greenhouses. Finally, in May, June, we move them out into the field, so out to our growing field. This year we grew on almost 20 acres, just under 20 acres. I'd suggest, again, your viewers go to the website. You'll see just how large this is. This is really transformational in this industry, a project this size and this complexity. So they go out into the field and they go into individual pots. And why it's important that they go into these individual pots is that the individual pots allow us to have tremendous control over the plant. Not only does it provide in COVID terms of social distancing, so if you had a problem, maybe a insect infestation or something, you have distance between the individual plants. They're not all packed in the ground as other outdoor growers do. So we have tremendous control over that. We also have tremendous control over the watering. We can make sure that we don't do too much watering. We can make sure we don't do too little watering. And an interesting anecdote to that is that we sourced out of China some really leading edge drone technology. This is really kind of cool. What we have is we have a drone airport that sits in the middle of our field with basically a control tower. And we have drones that are on fixed programs. And 4 times a day, these drones take off. They fly our entire field, and they are able to tell us using imaging, thermal imaging and so on. What they're able to do is tell us if a plant is getting overwatered, if a plant is getting underwatered. So we have, almost, 2,500 plants, individual plants out there in the field. We can manage through the course of the day every single plant. In fact, one of the problems that you can encounter is that if you have male plants out in the field, your field can go to seed. You have to be very careful of that. What the drone allows us to do is if we do have a male plant, it allows us also to identify the male plant, and then we can dispatch somebody from our office at site. They can go out, go right to that individual plant, remove and basically cull that individual plant. So in terms of managing our operation, it gives us a tremendous advantage, technological advantage of operations. So that's really interesting. In addition to the outdoor grow, so I mentioned our outdoor grow is we grew on about 20 acres. We have the capability of going to 25 acres in 2021. We mentioned that. We also have an adjoining property, the second property I mentioned, which is 99 acres, of which over 80 acres is suitable for growing. And this is really interesting because this becomes our expansion area. We can effectively increase our footprint 5, 6, 7-fold over the next 2, 3, 4 years as market demand in the industry builds and as our customer base starts to build. So that's the next phase of it. The other part of the business, and we really have effectively on site 2 businesses. We have our cultivation business and we have our extraction business. So your listeners probably are familiar with what processing and extraction is. That's how you get the product from the plant down to oil or distillate. Oil and distillate are the products that go into those Cannabis 2.0 products, into edibles, into pharmaceutical solutions, into lotions, into tinctures, all those types of things that we're focused on. So we built, over the past 2 years, we raised privately almost $20 million that has gone into this, and we built a purpose-built facility about 18,000 square feet that has state-of-the-art extraction capabilities. And where that's really interesting, this is how it's changed our frame of mind in terms of how we think of the business. Originally, we thought of ourselves as a grower. Now what we've come to do is we're thinking of ourselves predominantly as an extractor or processor, and secondly as a grower. So what we are now is we are a extractor with our own dedicated supply of cannabis. And there are very few companies like that in Canada right now that are doing this on a large scale outdoor basis. We're fortunate that we're one of the few. The other thing that we have is we have CO2 technology. So that allows us to be EU GMP compliant. It also allows us to push out a very high quality clear oil and distillate. Very, very, potent, high quality distillate and oil. In fact, what we found in the genetics that we planted 8 strains over the course of this past season, our first season. And with those 8 strains, what we found was that as compared to an indoor or greenhouse grower, which is typically 12 to 15 or 16% THC, our THC content was much, much higher. We were running 16 to 23, maybe even 25% THC. So that gives us a tremendous advantage because it means that we need fewer volume of plant stock in order to produce the same level of THC in our extraction and processing building. So what we're now doing is we're now operational in our extraction building. Again, go to the website, you can see some really intriguing shots. We'll soon have a video link to see the actual extraction process as it's moving along. And you can see the biomass going through our processor and into our ancillary equipment where we turn it into either a winterized oil, as I mentioned, or further refined down into distillate. So that's effectively how the operation works. In terms of the people, we've got a really strong team. As I mentioned, I told you about our founders who have collectively over 100 years of growing experience. On the processing side, we also have very experienced people. We have academics that have developed products that are now selling in the marketplace, and we do have plans down the line to start to develop our own products. This year, what we plan to do is we will sell directly to other licensed producers and producers of individual products. But we do have plans next year to move into white labeling so that we're directly involved with individual products, and also to work with other players in the industry and sell them the input product that they're going to require. So that's kind of a quick summary of where we're at. Our stock's been performing extremely well. We think that we, like every company probably in this industry, we think we're undervalued. What I think in terms of sort of looking at value in the industry, where I would look at us and position us is in comparison to the other major extractors. So if you look across Canada, you've got 2 major extractors. You have Valens out west, you have Metafarm out east. Both those 2 companies trade in the 250, 300, $350 million market cap range. Both of them are dedicated extractors. So what their principal preoccupation is extracting. They don't have their own dedicated supply of cannabis. And that's really the advantage that we have, is that we have our own committed, dedicated supply of cannabis on site. So what that means is that we can actually produce at a much, much lower level. In fact, in comparison, to give you an idea of the dynamics and really what we mean to the industry and what we're going to mean to the industry over the next 12 months, we can produce literally at 10 to 20% of what the indoor guys are producing at right now. So we have a tremendous cost advantage. And the reason for that is that, we're using natural sunlight. We're using the water that falls from the sky and so on. We're not having to, pay large sums for electricity and expensive buildings over top and greenhouses over top of our production. And we're doing it naturally. We don't have to buy pesticides and insecticides and all those types of things. Our product is very, very naturally grown. So that's what gives us a tremendous, tremendous cost advantage. So in comparison to those other extractors, I think what you really have to look for when you look at us is how we stack up in terms of having our own dedicated supply of product. So, that's kind of a mouthful. Maybe I can pause here, Rich, and in case you want to take it in a different direction with other questions.
No, I think that was great. I'm really, really impressed. Now, we've talked about this, and the cannabis sector has been a roller coaster, especially in Canada. A couple of years ago, the hottest sector on the planet. Right. And then last year, up until, I guess, till now, being kind of, the American ones have taken off and the Canadian ones have kind of, not done so well. You mentioned it. One of the major reasons is they've got these massive facilities. They're spending hundreds of millions, in some cases, billions of dollars in these massive facilities they're trying to create. And I think it's a mistake. And we've seen it. Clearly, it's a huge mistake. And Companies have had to have massive write-downs. They've had to have write-offs. Companies have gone bankrupt. I mean, it's been a dumpster fire in Canada of a lot of companies. Now, you guys, on the other hand, like you said, lowest cost producer because you're outdoors. You don't have a massive, expensive facility. You don't have to pay for all that lighting because it's natural. So genius. And then you don't have to hire tons of people because you're using drones.
Right.
Love it. I love it. You guys got a tight share structure. I believe around 90 million shares issued and outstanding, really small market cap, only 75 million market cap. And we're just getting started. So the other thing I want to talk about is your balance sheet. Our community likes to find undervalued, underappreciated, underexposed companies in hot sectors, tight share structures, strong balance sheets, money in the bank, little to no debt. Can you talk about your balance sheet? I believe you mentioned in your press release you've raised 20 million, and I think you guys have no debt. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not a dollar in debt.
Love
really
it.
Really strong balance sheet. I mean, we set out 2.5 years ago when we started construction. We said we're not going to take on debt. We're going to do this with equity, and I've been very fortunate. I've got a very strong, loyal group of shareholders. Literally, I would say 75% of the money has been raised through 20 different investors, all of whom are committed to the long-term development of Christina Lake. I mean, they're not even following the stock right now because they're looking down the line at where we're going to go. And some of them have been very instrumental. In fact, I'm visiting the site with one of them tomorrow, who's been back and forth to the site a couple times a month and has been really helping me to manage the build out up in Christina Lake. So I've got really, really strong committed investors. The other thing I have is my founders are really large investors in the company, are committed to it. The three founders, when I originally came across them, we sat down and I said, look, this is going to take time. This is going to be a challenge for us to do this. I said, if you guys are willing to work for basically $1 for the next 2 years and commit 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I said, we'll back you. And all three of them have done that. A couple of them from time to time are sleeping at site. I mean, there's the level of commitment's been tremendous. Not only that, but they've also got their families invested in the company. In fact, they've got the whole community invested in the company. The head of the regional district in Christina Lake is a shareholder. The mayor of Grand Forks, which is nearby to us, the closest town, is an investor. So we have tremendous support, 300 or 400 shareholders from the community itself. So that's really, really important. So yes, very strong balance sheet. We have, we're very comfortable with our cash. We have cash to last us for the next 12 months comfortably, even if we never sold $1 worth of cannabis. And we're expecting to sell a lot of cannabis over the next 12 months in the form of oil and distillate. So we anticipate, not only having a strong balance sheet, but having a very strong income statement over the next 12 months based on where our pricing is, Rich, and where we think we can go. And I just wanted to back up your the point you started with in terms of where the industry is. I think that's an important thing to understand and to understand the distinction between Christina Lake Cannabis and a lot of those other cannabis companies you talked about in Canada in terms of what the problems have been for the market. So the two major impediments to the market over the past 24 to 36 months have been the pace at which Health Canada has licensed distribution, effectively licensed outlets, stores, dispensaries, whatever you want to call them. Health Canada was quite slow in rolling that out. Health Canada has now recognized that. They have vastly accelerated the rollout of stores and distribution. So what that's doing, we're already seeing an appreciable impact on demand. Demand is starting to rise in Canada as a result of the consumer having more outlets where they can get hold of products like the products that we're going to be providing. So that's a really important distinction. The other important thing is the competition with a black market. So everywhere in the world, you're always going to have a black market that you have to compete with. And the indoor producers who you're referring to and the greenhouse producers who you're referring to, they've got a real problem with the black market because the black market produces at about 50% of their costs because they don't have all the regulation. They can do things underground, so their costs are very, very low. They don't have to do things for the same quality. The product's not consistent. All of those things. There's impurities, all the things that you would typically see in a black market. The difference with us, if you remember back when I started the explanation here, I mentioned that we're sitting at 10 to 20% the cost of the indoor and greenhouse producers. So here you've got the indoor and greenhouse guys up here. Then in between, you've got the black market at 50% of their cost. And then you have us down here at 10 to 20% of their cost. So we have a tremendous advantage, not only over the greenhouse and the indoor guys, but also over the black market. So the black market's not a threat to us. And the reason for that is you can't hide 18 acres. I mean, if you see the profile from our website again of just how large our project is, and particularly as we expand beyond the 18 acres over the next couple of years to the 100 acres and perhaps even beyond that, we also have some additional land available to us. As we increase that footprint, you can't hide that. You can't hide that from a drone or a helicopter or anything else. So we can do this on scale. The black market can't do this on scale. So we have a tremendous advantage there as well, Rich. So we're excited about the legalization in the States. We're already starting to plan as to how we can take advantage of that, how we can start to make our product available down in the US. What we also have started to think about is how do we potentially take our knowledge, our genetics, which are, I think, second to none in the outdoor space. How do we take those down south? How do we go and look for potentially a mirrored facility down in California or another location that's well suited to growing cannabis similar to Christina Lake and set up down there? Because I think that's a tremendous opportunity for our company as well for expansion.
I have another question here from one of our members, Kyokushin Trader. How you doing, Kyokushin Trader? A very high net worth member that buys a lot of our picks and has done extremely well. Can you guarantee same quality year to year and same quantity taking into account the weather?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we had a bumper crop this year. The reason for it, very dry spring in Christina Lake and a prolonged, let's call it summer. It kind of lasted through September, October into the fall. Typically, our growing season is in the neighborhood of June 1st through to September 30th. Those months are very, very reliable. And that's one of the advantages of Christina Lake. There's a couple of other grow operations in Canada. There's some out in Ontario. They're much more open to the vagaries of weather, the impact of detrimental weather. Christina Lake's pretty consistent. So in terms of that growing window, very, very low risk growing window. In fact, our three founders have been growing in that area for 25 years. As I mentioned, they've never lost a crop to weather conditions. So very, very low risk up in that part of the world. The other thing that is intriguing to us, so we want to start to push the window a little bit, which gets your listener's question. What we would like to do is we would like to move up our planting by 2 weeks, and we'd like to push back our harvest by 2 weeks. And what we determined, one of the big learnings we had this year, Rich, that we're really excited about is that we learned that with certain strains, I mentioned we planted 8 strains, with about 4 of those strains, we determined that if we had planted 2 weeks earlier and harvested 2 weeks later, we could have done 2 turns of our crop. So effectively, we double the acreage right there, right? Because we can produce twice the production off that same footprint. So that's something that we're going to experiment next year with. We're going to take a portion of our land and we're going to plant a little earlier and harvest a little later and see if we can get 2 turns off of it. So it becomes a little bit riskier when you do that, but the potential return is tremendous. So it's well worth it. And we know that the majority of our crop is still going to be in that window that's very, very safe in terms of Christina Lake and the risk of growing outdoors. So not terribly concerned about the outdoor conditions based on just a history of consistent, dry, warm weather up in the Christina Lake area over the growing season.
Okay, great. We have another question from Brendan and Ella's Fun Adventures. When is your next earnings? I bet they will be no debt, so earnings will be good. Any update on your next earnings and what we can expect for investors?
Sure. Well, of course, this is our first growth season, so this is the first opportunity that we've actually had to post sales and earnings. We're now extracting, so we have this massive amount of biomass that we took into our building. In fact, the secured storage under Health Canada rules, we have to have all of our material in secured storage with video cameras and motion detectors and so on. So we overwhelmed our secured storage area. It was so much product. We ended up with much more tightly packed in there than what we had expected because we had such great production. But I think what we where we intend to go here is that we have our extraction now up and running. We're now producing oil on a daily basis. We're now producing distillate on a daily basis. What our next step is to begin selling that. So our year end is November, so we just got past year end. The first quarter for 2021 will end in February. We will have sales. We will have demonstrable sales in that quarter. Where I think you'll really start to see our sales pull through is in the second quarter. So from March through the end of that quarter and into the summer, that's where we expect to sell a majority of our product as we build our inventory out. But we have an excellent sales team. I've got a meeting with our sales team right after this fall. We hired one of the top salesmen from Aurora back earlier this year, and he's been working with his contacts and building up distribution relationships for us. And the head of our whole sales department, he was previously in the biofuel business and built a substantial $200 million business in the biofuel side of it, all on the back of his own sales efforts. So a really experienced guy in terms of building sales organizations. So that team already is working with our product to get our product to market. So to answer your investor's question, you will see sales in this quarter, and those sales will really begin to build over the next 2 quarters. And then by the time we get to June, we'll be into our, starting the planting and cultivation of our second crop. And as I mentioned, we're anticipating a significant increase in terms of the size and the scope of next year's crop as well.
If there was one thing you would want shareholders to know about Christina Lake that are watching right now, we got investors that are watching and they're going to watch this from all over the world, what would it be? We know that you've got money in the bank. We know you're one of the lowest cost producers. We know that you've got a massive outdoor grow. We know that you've got no debt. We know you got a tight share structure. We know the stock is going up. What else do the investors need to know?
Well, I think one of the big things that we mentioned, you named most of the big ones, I think, Rich. One of the big ones is it's all natural. That's really important in terms of how we plan to market the product. So our thinking, the way we think of this, if you think of computer terms, and then you think of, let's take a Dell computer. When you look on the outside of a Dell computer, it says Intel inside, right? So it has an Intel microchip inside. But that is so important to the sale of their product that they actually put that on the outside. And that is branding that Intel intentionally does to develop brand identity for them. What we're going to do is we're working to really brand our product as, Kootenai clean, natural, sun grown. And what we anticipate as we start to, sell out to customers is we want to develop a very similar experience to Intel. We want the products that end up being the end product to indicate that they are either Kootenai grown or Christina Lake grown, because we think that's really, really important that people understand that this comes from Christina Lake because it is a superior quality cannabis and consistent cannabis with very, very high potency. So I think just to reiterate, I think you hit it. I think very, very low cost structure that we're fortunate to have, very potent product, which we're fortunate to have, very high quality product, which we're fortunate to have, and very consistent product, which we're very, very fortunate to have. And it's community based. That's the other thing that we're really, really proud of.
If somebody wanted to get in contact with you and maybe ask questions or potentially invest, let's say there's another cannabis company that's watching, they want to work with you guys, buy some of your products, work with you, do an LOI, joint venture, what would be the process of them getting in contact with you, Joel?
Yeah, a couple of ways. There's a investor relations site that if it's an investor, specifically investor relations focused question. And we've got a fantastic fellow, Jamie Frawley, who does our investor relations for us. Really well-read guy who understands our business intimately. So you can reach out to Jamie. He's at info@ChristinalakeCannabis.com. Or alternatively, reach out directly to me. I'm very responsive. Might take me a day or two to get back to you because I'm busy, but nonetheless, I will get back to you. So please reach out to me directly. And I'm just Joel, Joel, at ChristinalakeCannabis.com. So I would invite anybody to reach out through email and leave me your phone number, and I'd be happy to get back to you and to chat about it. We are excited. You can hear the enthusiasm. We're excited about where we are and where we're going, and so I love to talk to people about our business and our people.
I'm very excited about having you on our show. Hopefully we can have you again on the show. And anytime there's any big breaking news, we'd love to invite you back so we can continue this discussion, get the community involved to do some Q&As, and really build out the story and let our community know exactly who Christina Lake is every step of the way. So congratulations to all of our members already on Christina Lake that got in at 46 cents. Today we're well over 80 cents in just a short period, like less than 2 weeks. The stock has done really well. And congratulations, Joel, so far on all your success. And guys, remember, Rich TV Live is strictly for education and entertainment purposes. Always do your due diligence. Always do your research before you invest in anything we talk about here in Rich TV Live. We're not licensed advisors. Speak to a financial advisor. Let them know you got the pick from Rich TV Live. Chances are they're going to say, wow, that guy's got a lot of picks. I'm going to buy it too. I hear it every day, guys. It's true. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, hit the like button and comment down below. Share the video everywhere. Allows the video to go viral so people all over the world can see and learn about this undervalued, underappreciated, underexposed opportunity with a company that has 20 million in the bank, no debt, one of the smallest, tightest share structures out there, a tiny market cap, which in my opinion is pretty much got every single check mark I'm looking for a company that has the opportunity to explode, and a strong management team with Joel leading the way. Joel, thank you for joining us. Joel Dumaresq, the CEO of Christina Lake Cannabis Corp. Thank you guys for watching. If you're not winning, you're not watching. We bring in the winners and we bring them to you first. Joel, have yourself a great day. Keep up the great work.
Hey, Rich, thanks so much. And thanks to your listeners. Just one clarification. I heard you say we had 20 million in the bank. I wish we did. We don't need 20 million in the bank, so we don't have 20 million in the bank. We've got about $3 million in the bank. We have over $20 million invested into the company of investor money. So great being part of your program, Rich. Really look forward to working with you. As you say, we will be back because we certainly have lots of other exciting news to communicate over the next number of weeks. So look forward to getting back.
Fantastic. So guys, for my clarification, $3 million in the bank. They've raised $20 million with no debt. Strong balance sheet. Thank you for clearing that up, Joel. That's why we love to do these shows, so we can find out exactly from the CEO all the details. Thank you guys for watching. Joel, continue all your hard work. And for those of you guys that are watching, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Big, big day for our community. Lots of winners out there. Stay tuned. There's more coming. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. Joel, have a nice day. And thank you guys for watching.
Thanks so much, Rich. Bye-bye.